It's dark. You put the light. Put the light off. Robin, picture the light. Hello, good evening. Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Pandav. We are just about to go live, so we are all on mute right now. Anuji, namaste. How are you?
Hi,
right.
How are you?
Very well, thanks. Okay, I think we're about to go live, so Rebecca, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of the conference on delivering for nutrition in India, Insights from Implementation Research. I am Rebecca Laishram and I am from IFPRI. The closing session on From Evidence to Policy, Key Insights from Delivering for Nutrition 2020 will be co-chaired by Mohan Mishra and Junaid Ahmed. Mohan Mishra is the Secretary for Ministry of Women and Child Development. Previously, he was with the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Dr. Junaid Ahmed is the Country Director of World Bank. He has a PhD in Applied Economics from Stanford University and MPA from Harvard University. Before the co-chairs takes the conversation forward, I have a few technical announcements to ensure our experience is as smooth and interactive as possible. The session will be recorded and posted on the IFPRI-POSHAN website. You can find all information about the conference and other useful resources on the poshan.ifpri.info. All participants have been muted, but later in the session, we will open the conversation. If you have questions, we invite you to share them in the Q&A box throughout the session, and we'll do our best to raise them during the session. If there is time, we may have participants to raise their virtual hands so that we can call on you to speak your question aloud. In case the question similar to yours is already there in the Q&A box, please upvote it to avoid repetition. If at any point you experience technical issues, please check your audio settings and your internet connection. You can always try to connect to the session using the same Zoom link and passcode. Thank you, and over to you, Dr. Ahmed.
Just get me the clips.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for participating. It's my pleasure to very quickly introduce you to a wonderful panel. We have Garg, Principal Secretary, Women and Child Development from Odisha. We have CR Prasanna, Special Secretary, Women and Child from Chhattisgarh. Welcome. We're also joined by GS Toteja from the ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research. We have CS Pandav, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and then finally Neena Bhatia Kaul from NITI Aayog. So delighted that we have such a wonderful and powerful, I would say, panel, and we're going to be engaging with them and getting their perspective. This is a very unique conference. It's the third India-focused implementation conference. You know, nutrition at some point was merely seen as just an addition to our lives, to the lives of young children, to us as adults. And then over time, we began to recognize that nutrition is actually a component of human capital. And that if nutrition is missing, you actually begin to not only are you not able to invest in human capital, you may actually land up decaying human capital. I think there are colleagues who are not on mute. If I could just ask colleagues to be on mute, that way we don't have an echo. So nutrition has taken on a fundamentally different shape in the development dialogue. And in the past decade plus, we now begin to see that nutrition investment, for example, in adolescent girls, following by nutrition investment in young mothers, and nutritional investment in the first 1,000 days of a young child, that this linkage from adolescents to young mothers to children is in fact an investment in human capital. And for a finance minister, that's not a social expenditure anymore. It's actually investment in economic growth. And that's a fundamental shift in the way we look at the whole issue of nutrition and human capital. Now, one thing is to recognize the importance of nutrition. The other is to figure out how to deliver nutrition at the right time, the right place. How do you do that? India has Anganwadi workers. India has self-help groups of women. India has ASHA workers. India has local governments. India has state machineries. How do all of these come together to ensure that service delivery of nutrition is, again, on time, in the right place, at the right moment? And I think we've learned that doing research at a scientific level is one important goal, but doing research to understand how implementation can happen, what are the bottlenecks of implementation, is an equally important goal. The what is something we always are good at, the how is something that we're not always good at. And so in many ways, this conference is about understanding how, and the invitation that has come from so many, the invitation has gone to so many to come in with their proposal of research in this area. And I'm glad that we're doing it in Poshan Month, the National Nutrition Month. And this is something that the Ministry of Women and Child, Minister and the Secretary have been pushing. So with that, let me turn over to get a summary of where we are and ask Purnima Menon from IFPRI to take us through a quick summary, and then we will turn to our panels and get their insights. Purnima, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Junaid. I hope you all can hear me and see my screen. Excellent. I have the absolutely unenviable task of summarizing what have been 5 most incredible days of discussion on implementation research to support India's mission on malnutrition in about 10 minutes with each of you. So give me just a second while I also make sure that I've set up my timer. We gathered, let me just say a couple of things first. The conference has been, is co-hosted by 19 co-host organizations, which include Indian academics and national entities like NITI, Aayog, AIMS, ICMR, NIN, Accountability Initiative, the India Nutrition Initiative, as well as the India-based offices of many of us who are from global institutions, both research and development partners to the government of India. So it's a very proud moment for me to be sort of anchoring this as one of the co-hosts and sharing with you what we have been doing and discussing. I'm also really grateful to have so many of you here, especially the secretaries of Women and Child and the 2 principal secretaries from the states. It is an unprecedented time for nutrition when we measure it up against anything that it will take to scale up nutrition. In work that we've done at IFPRI previously, we've outlined 9 things that need to be in place to support countries in their missions in scaling up nutrition. And the 4 things that you see in green here, a clear vision, a choice of high impact interventions, an organizational context for enabling the delivery of those interventions, as well as the presence of catalyst champions and system-wide ownership. These are things that are working really well in India right now. The remaining 5 things, which relate to how we are going to scale up and reach everyone, the operational and strategic capacities that need to be in place for that, the adequacy, stability, flexibility of the financing that needs to be in place, as well as issues related to governance, and finally, the mechanisms for learning and accountability. These are things that we are certainly making progress on, but could do more around. And the conference was really focused on those. A driving force for the conference for us is this particular dashboard, which in numbers captures what, Junaid, you put so well in words. Are you reaching those who need to be reached, everyone who needs to be reached with the right interventions at the right time? This is the dashboard of the Poshan Abhiyan interventions across the life course from left to right and across every state in India from top to bottom. And our vision is that this dashboard should be blue, because blue means that more than 75% of people are being reached. And we know we want to get to 90. We hear about coverage, continuity, intensity, and quality. And what this dashboard and a lot of the associated research around this that researchers have been doing in concert with the mission in India suggests is that Coverage is highly varied, both for interventions and across states. Continuity, which is that timeliness of interventions, is more challenging, and a few states actually have achieved high coverage across those 1,000 days. And I'm really pleased that the two successful states that have done that, Odisha and Chhattisgarh, are both here with us today. We know very little from research on intensity, and what we're learning about quality across the different types of interventions tell us that we need to do more. And this is where implementation research comes in. So implementation research, the science of delivery, which is what the conference has been focused on, is really important because many different things can go wrong on the pathway from our choice of an evidence-based intervention that is proven by science in a controlled setting to actually having impact and reaching people at scale. So implementation research is an effort to understand how these things come together to help us reach everyone and achieve impact. Now, in an integrated framework on implementation science in nutrition, we have talked about 3 forms of knowledge to inform programs: global knowledge and evidence, contextual knowledge that comes from implementation insights, and contextual implementation research. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Delivering for Nutrition 2020 this year really truly featured all 3 forms of knowledge. We had people join us from everywhere and from all parts of the knowledge community, not just the researchers, but the researchers and the implementers and the global researchers who helped bring some things together. So it was really an opportunity for us to learn together and consolidate our knowledge. As we mentioned earlier, this is the 3rd edition of the conference and the first ever virtual edition. It was based on submitted abstracts this time, so it was competitive. We had over 150 submissions that were double-blind, peer-reviewed, and scored that covered the core platforms, themes, and interventions related to Poshan Abhiyan. It was also #local for Poshan because the research submissions were primarily from India-based organizations, Indian researchers, and those who attended and joined the conference were also primarily from India. So in a sense, this was knowledge from here and for here. And that should be something that we should all be happy about. The conference was structured over 4 days. We had on the first day, September 14th, the Monday, three pre-conference workshops that were organized by our co-hosts. We then had an opening session and a closing session, which we're in right now. In the opening session, we launched something called the India Nutrition Implementation Research Gap Map, which in a sense tells us where the evidence is still limited on what we need to know to strengthen programs in India. We had 12 thematic sessions that covered topical areas such as supporting healthy nutrition behaviors, scaling up interventions for anemia, severe wasting, and what is happening in the context of COVID. So some very hot off the presses research. We had thematic sessions that were on platforms for delivery, ICDS, health, women's groups. And then we had 4 very important thematic sessions that were on system strengthening. Finally, in the realm of connecting global and local knowledge, we had 3 plenary lectures by prominent researchers, both from the global community and from India. Now, if I organize those conference sessions around the conceptual framework for nutrition, this is how it looks like. And I will only pick in the next few minutes a few of these to hone in on 1 slide each to share some insights with you. So in terms of the outcomes that Poshan Abhiyan targets, we had presentations that covered a range of issues related to how children grow, focusing both on linear growth and ponderal growth, i.e. stunting and wasting. And we had sessions on anemia. If you think about the drivers of malnutrition, we had a fantastic session on maternal, infant, and young child behaviors. And we had sessions that spoke to the issues related to household food security. If you think about the interventions that are in the framework for Poshan Abhiyan, we had sessions that focused on food supplements, micronutrients, cash transfers, behavior change, and food systems. In terms of platforms, the research covered a range of issues related to strengthening the ICDS system, as well as health systems and women's group platforms. And finally, we had some very important sessions on bringing it all together with convergence in mind, what happens in the context of a crisis such as COVID-19, and the importance of implementation research itself, i.e. what us as the research community can do to support where India needs to go. So let me just summarize for you. I've chosen just a few sessions which I thought would be of particular interest to those, especially on the panel. As I mentioned, we had about 3 sessions that were focused on child growth. And insights from the sessions that focused on stunting and wasting really remind us that what we see as indicators that are measured in these in our national goals and in sort of setting program targets, they're all indicators of disturbances to the overall normal patterns of growth in these first 2 years of life. Across all of these sessions, speakers sort of overwhelmingly agreed that whether we are focusing on stunting or on wasting, prevention should be a primary focus with particular support to 1,000-day households in the context of COVID. So the key insights and recommendations were that because both forms of malnutrition affect children very young, and because the research tells us that they share common determinants, the determinants of wasting are not very different from the determinants of stunting when you really go down to it. Therefore, prevention should be a primary strategy both for stunting and for wasting. The modeling research that we heard suggested that in the context of COVID-19, the economic shocks can certainly increase wasting, and that this will not just have potential implications for mortality, but that we should be concerned about the long-term impacts of that wasting on stunting for the same children, as well as for other aspects of their development. Everyone also agreed that strategies to address both stunting and wasting should really truly dig into the issues of convergence, and we'll come to that in a minute, and have to go beyond food. And certainly there was agreement that identification and the management of SAM, which are important focus areas for the mission right now, are absolutely important, but management must be secondary to prevention. We have to get prevention right. On maternal, infant, and young child behaviors, which was another very important session, the research basically showed that there is a challenge around these behaviors, and that different maternal, infant, and young child practices need attention, be it dietary practices during pregnancy or the consumption of supplements, as well as breastfeeding practices and complementary feeding practices, and especially the feeding of sick and vulnerable infants. There was agreement that these drivers, again, cut across a range of different things and are not just focused on knowledge and skills, that more research was actually needed to shed more light on something that truly happens within homes. We need to understand what the modifiable factors are and what the true structural challenges are. And the programs that are launched need to be able to address both those things that are modifiable through behavior change, et cetera, but also those things that truly need structural or underlying support. We had a really fantastic plenary that provided both a technical update and a programmatic update on food supplements in nutrition programs. We were joined by Professor Zulfikar Bhutta from the University of Toronto and Sick Kids in Canada, whose team has been doing evidence reviews. The summary of their work, and he has made his presentation available to us, are that India is completely on the right track in being a country that has prioritized and strengthened the reach of food supplementation programs in the context of the ICDS. But the research suggests that strong efforts are needed to review and examine the nutritional composition of all supplementary foods included both for women and for children, because the evidence base is updated and should give us good direction. Now, on the programmatic side, again, there has been a fantastic consolidation of insight over the last, I want to say, 2 or 3 years, and we've been very much part of that. There is also a compendium that has been released on this and a range of other materials, which the research community would be very pleased to dig into in more detail with the ministry. So in addition to the nutritional composition, which needs attention, and we know that work is underway on this, there remain a bunch of unknowns. So for example, we know that there are many different state-wise models for the production of take-home ration that include centralized production with the state sector, centralized production, with private sector and decentralized production. But regardless of these, the ability of these models to deliver high quality products remains largely unknown. Reach to client populations, as shown here, has clearly increased over the years, but it remains low, particularly in high undernutrition states, and we need to know more about that. food supplements in the ICDS are very much a gateway service. They bring people in and they then get other services, but we don't know very much about the use and uptake of these food supplements by client populations. And last but not least, in the context of convergence, even within the program, we don't know very much about how well the integration of the take-home rations and the food with other parts of the program are doing. The session this afternoon that I attended was on cash transfers and nutrition, and it turned out that all presentations were on the PMMVY. There are just 3 primary takeaways from this. So firstly, that the PMMVY is an appropriately targeted cash transfer to the 1,000-day window, especially at the beginning of that 1,000-day window. At the same time, the available research that is accumulating from multiple contexts highlights that population level awareness is somewhat limited still. Enrollment paperwork is quite cumbersome, especially since paperwork is required for each tranche of funds. And that cumbersome paperwork sometimes results in payment delays. That means that the cash is often received outside of the window of intended impact. The PMMVY cash transfer is not well enough labeled or integrated with other services, and it could have a greater impact if integration was stronger. So some key recommendations there are to include more behavior change work on the awareness of the cash transfer, to examine what it would take to smoothen some of the enrollment processes, and what it would take to reduce the delays to ensure that age targeting is timely, and finally on how we can more effectively connect the cash transfer with existing services. On COVID-19 and nutrition, there is some very relevant and very important early research from phone surveys and other data collection that many people have been doing. And the early research suggests the following. Firstly, we know that multiple pathways will affect nutrition outcomes, not just programs, but the impact of the pandemic on incomes, food security, the use of programs, as well as some of the other social context related issues. The insights from the surveys leave us with some uncertainty where we don't know whether if we build it, people will come back. So we know that programs are coming back online, but research with communities is needed to help understand their perspectives and strengthen how they engage back with these services. Research is also suggesting, of course, that the vulnerable families will become more vulnerable. And there are some insights. There was a very interesting paper on migration and nutrition that was pre-COVID that should help us think about mitigation strategies. The service delivery efforts and programs are not going to be enough to put families back on the path to nutrition. Data is highlighting household fragility, and this means that convergence or the connection of health and nutrition programs with social protection and income generation is going to be critically important, particularly for vulnerable 1,000-day families. And last but not least, data is essential to keep track. Several of us have been working on a COVID-19 sensitive nutrition data strategy, and data is coming together on multiple strands. We would like to recommend that we create routine opportunities to review research findings, both within and outside the existing networks of COVID-19 researchers in India, and that we make some strong investments in supporting sense making across the different data sources and data types. This is, I believe, my last bit. There were 4 very, very important sessions on strengthening insights across delivery systems. These sessions looked at issues such as infrastructure, financing, and human resources, on the use of technology, improving the use of data, and building operational and technical capabilities. There are important findings related to nutrition financing, related to the depth of some social issues such as caste, which still continue to plague service delivery, and insights on the basic infrastructure that is still needed in many parts. A key recommendations there would be to sort of look at this with a little more depth together with the research community. The research on financing, for example, can be used in annual budgeting, and the work on understanding the challenges related to infrastructure and HR could also be expanded. On the use of technology, there was a very interesting session that is demonstrating that as the technology efforts are expanding, there have also been some interesting pieces of work by researchers and implementers that are bringing together those experiences. And we would like to recommend that the policymakers should review the research findings on technology to help consolidate the insights on scaling up financing and making technology work better. On improving the use of data, again, there is some very new research really in the last year or so highlighting the links between data use and data quality, providing insights on directions to improve these, suggesting that the current culture still remains the aggregating up of data and reporting rather than on local use. So we think again here there is a strong role for the research community to connect with the implementing community and test new ways to address how data is currently used. Last but not least, there were very interesting insights on the many efforts that are underway to build capacity. But this is an area where the research was somewhat limited. And so our primary recommendation is to create a much stronger linkage with the research community on understanding the best approaches here. I want to, this is the last sort of content session, content piece. There was again a very critical session on convergence where there was across the board strong agreement that what is most important is convergence, is the focus on effective convergence on the 1,000-day household, with the idea that convergence should create a circle of protection for every single 1,000-day household in this country. And that means that beyond ICDS, all of the critical services and actions that are available should converge on these households. We need more research on this, unfortunately, because there isn't enough known about how exactly to make this happen and whether the current processes will truly help this happen or not. So in closing, the research community truly commits to joining hands with Poshan Abhiyan. It is our endeavor to work with you as implementers to help turn those yellows, reds, and greens into blue. With 3IE, we have released an implementation research evidence gap map, which suggests that several implementation areas need more investment by researchers, including fortification, understanding home-based behaviors, convergence, food supplements in the ICDS, more work to strengthen PMMBY, and more on the system strengthening areas. Together, we would like to recommend the development of a prioritized implementation research agenda, linking with funding agencies within India to create both research funding mechanisms and creating stronger evidence to policy linkages between the research and the program community. We truly believe this can help to strengthen the impact of Poshan Abhiyan. With your permission, Junaid and the Secretary, I would like to announce also, this is a surprise, a few virtual awards to recognize the top-ranked research submission by Samya Pancholi of Ashoka University, whose work on social identity recognition and redistribution in the ICDS was ranked at the top of all the scored abstracts. And Vishal Shastri from Alive and Thrive, whose implementation submission on the strategic use of data was ranked on top. I would also like to recognize Sneha Mumbai, which is a small NGO in Mumbai working on urban nutrition. They were the organization who submitted several abstracts that were actually really high quality, such that they were the organization with the highest number of accepted abstracts. We also had a winner of the nutrition quiz, Sophia Sagu, and a couple of prizes for the most enthusiastic social hangout participants. With that, again, I would like to reiterate our commitment to walk together with you on this journey with evidence. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was quite a tour de force today to summarize several days of intense work. I tell you, the only reason they won the Zumba dance is because I didn't participate. Had I participated, that would have been another result altogether. If I may take the permission of Secretary Ram Mohan Mishra to start, let me say that it's actually, I'm so delighted that Secretary Mishra is the recipient of all of this storyline, because what I know of him, implementation is really his forte. I had a chance to work with him in the Ministry of MSME, and I could see how much focused he was on implementation. So I'm not surprised that in Women and Child, he has taken a big leadership role in focusing on implementation. So Secretary Mishra, with your permission, I'm going to have a short discussion with the panel, and then we'll come back to you. Let me begin with the panel. We have only 30 minutes, so I'm going to ask the panel to be quick in their response, so we can have several questions back and forth and see if we can at least simulate a discussion. And it's interesting, we have two representatives of states and we have two representatives of scientific institution and one representative of a national policy institution. So it'll be interesting to see how they all look at research in this area and their perspective. Now, I'm very eager to talk about actual implementation, but I think what we should try and do is understand where research and implementation fits in the agenda of all of the organizations and indeed the leaders who represent these organizations. It's a slightly different discussion than one that goes directly into what's happening in your state or in your organization. But let's see where the conversation goes. Let me perhaps begin with Principal Secretary Anu Garg. Let me ask you, what is it that you feel you don't know about the whole story of implementation when it comes to delivery of nutrition? What is it that you would like to know more of? And I'm asking that question in order to get a sense what could be the agenda of research. Over to you, Anu.
Yeah, thanks, Junaid. And hello, sir, and hello, everyone. Hi, Purnima. That was a very nice presentation. So, Junaid, that's a very nice question you asked. Actually, when I was in Bloomberg School of Public Health, doing my master's in public health, I was one of the practitioners. I think I was the only practitioner in a sea of research oriented students. And at that time, you know, I realized how much of bureaucrat bashing can be done. And they said that we do so much of research and these bureaucrats and policy makers, they don't make use of anything. And they do all their policy making without this wonderful research that is done. And so on behalf of the policy making community, I just mentioned to them that do you all ever find out from the policy makers what research they actually want? Or is it just that you base it on the basis of whatever data is available or whatever is convenient or whatever is dear to you? So, I mean, that I think that is a gap that will always be there between researchers and policy makers. But I have seen that in recent years, I'm personally finding that it's because of the internet, because of very, very credible research agencies that have come up, and also because we bureaucrats have also become a little more, you know, tamed, let me put it. And so we are also looking at evidence. I'm finding that evidence is now actually being used and we are looking for more evidence. So for example, you raised very fundamental questions. What I am looking for is that I'm doing so many new things. So for example, in Odisha, let's say we do 5 eggs a week for the children. Many states don't do it. We want to know whether it is really making a difference to the children. And we did it because evidence showed that children do need protein. So an egg being a good source of protein, we said, okay, we will give 5 eggs. But we would like to know whether those 5 eggs which we are giving to the children are actually contributing to their nutritional needs. So in many ways, what I would really look at is program evaluations, impact evaluation, not just of the entire program, maybe of little bits of the program. So a lot of surveys we would like to be done. For example, the reach. So when she was showing the charts, I was saying like take home ration, Chhattisgarh and Odisha have been consistently doing well, which means we would like to know for our other things also, whether our other schemes are also reaching everybody, especially hard to reach areas, because states like ours, we have huge number of difficult areas, difficult geographically, difficult Naxalite problems, so many other issues. So that is another thing. And then we would like research on IT scoping. Now that so much of work is being done with technology, what more can we do to do, and also to kind of see what we are already doing and tell us whether that is right or do we need to do a little bit more. Then these policy papers. which IFPRI has been, I must congratulate Purnima and Rashmi and everybody. They have been coming out with these policy papers, and which are very useful for us, because whenever we have to put up a proposal to the government, contrary to what you people think, even we government people, we also have to put in evidence and we have to justify our proposal. And so these policy papers are very useful for us. So we need these policy briefs. Then another thing which we need is, which sometimes is not available for us, is what other states are doing and doing well, and which has been researched. So we would like international best practices and best practices from other states. If we can get those, we can put in and we can say that this is a best practice already studied by so and so and so and so here. And if with these adaptations, we can give it a shot. So that is another thing that we can do. And finally, another thing is implementation bottlenecks, which Junaid was referring to. I think the devil is in the detail, and we have such wonderful schemes. And it's mainly the implementation which down the line, it goes for a toss. So we would very much like to know what are those implementational issues where because of which the scheme which would have otherwise delivered has not. I'll give you a few examples. For example, our take-home ration model is considered one of the better models in the country. We do it, it's a decentralized model. It is a local thing. Our self-help groups make the take-home ration. But when we were studying it, we realized that we were getting problems of quality. Sometimes they were not getting it on time. So these kind of implementation issues. One thing that we did was, we said, okay, we'll have a fixed day for preparation across the state, which means all self-help groups will, roast the ingredients and they grind the ingredients on one fixed day of the month, the 23rd. And then everybody could go and monitor it. Everyone in the village knew it is being made. So it made an impact on the quality. But I want to know what was the impact. If I did this implementational intervention, what was the impact? Plus, we would also like concurrent. What happens is, in research, unfortunately, that sometimes we get the research so late. For example, and Purnima knows this, NFHS 4, we were given some policy paper based on that when NFHS 5 is already underway. So we would like it to be topical, concurrent monitoring type of thing if possible, and also looking for process engineering, because we don't have the time to go into our processes that this is where we are going wrong, but we would appreciate if research agencies based on international, national experience, if they can tell us. So these are some of my initial thoughts.
Thank
Junaid.
you. I really appreciate you laying out many of the areas that you wish you had the information in real time, not in terms of in lag. But maybe, and you talked about not only evaluations, you talked about understanding inclusion, who gets left out. You talked about learning what other states are doing, and globally also. So you had a series of questions that are related to what you would like in terms of, if you will, the applied research or the applied perspective. So let me actually turn over and ask CR Prasanna, Special Secretary, Women and Child Development, Chhattisgarh, what does the state, and in fact your department, how do you actually do research, if you do research? Do you actually contract out into the universities? Do you have teams specifically that are doing the type of evaluation to answer the questions that Anu has done? How does your state and your department in particular reach out in order to do research, to answer some of these policy-based questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Junaid. One small correction. I am not Dr. C.R. Prasanna, Special Secretary. I am actually R. Prasanna, Secretary, Women and Child Welfare. And Dr. C.R. Prasanna, Special Secretary, Health Department. There are actually two Prasannas. So small confusion.
Our apologies for that, but I'm sure equally high quality on both, Prasanna. So the question is to you also.
Yeah. With respect to the actual research that Chhattisgarh is doing, we have both the models. For example, we have Vajan Tivaha, which we do every year to find out the number of malnourished children in our state. So last year we had partnered with EPOD to find out how the entire system of taking measurement and the quality of data was being made. So based on those data, we found out that even Anganwadi workers were not even knowing how to take the weights properly. So that was one based on that, then we were able to design something so that the quality of weighing and taking heights changes. And even right now, we are again partnered with EPOD regarding opening of Anganwadi centers for providing two services, that is hot cooked meals and also vaccination services, even during this COVID lockdown. So right now the survey is happening in 8 districts of the states. So this is partnering with other institutions like UNICEF and other partners. Another option is that we also have an in-house in the form that in health department, we have a state health resource center, which is a fully autonomous institution under the health department. So we also give some research projects to them, and especially in health department, what are our pain points. So we give the list of pain points to the SHRC, and they hire people and they do the research and they come up with certain suggestions based on which we do policy level corrections or any implementation changes or designing the scheme. So we have both the models adopted for our purposes.
Could you talk a little bit about data? One of the things that we are learning that in normal times, getting data is very important. In times of crisis, you realize that getting data in real time is extremely important. From the state's perspective, how would you assess the state's ability to get the data in real time that can feed into policy making? And how is the state investing in that?
Right now, especially since I have a long working in health department, and right now I am new to this women and child welfare department. But with respect to health department, we have a dedicated cell for this data collection and data analysis, where we not only take care of from the secondary sources, but we use the primary sources also. Right now in women and child welfare department, for example, this opening of Anganwadi centers, again, to get the real-time data, we are using the call center facilities. We call the available numbers, mobile numbers, which we have with them, and find out from them the feedback of different questions that we have prepared. And also, we also send certain teams to the field and find out the reality, and we do the cross-checking. And second is the usage of secondary data, which are available across different departments. So for even this opening of Anganwadi centers, we needed data of health department from their MCTS system also. So by sharing of the data that is available with the different departments, and also using the data that we collected through telecalling or through the survey at the field level, so we get the necessary data.
Let me ask you a question, which then I'll ask Anu also. When you look at the delivery of nutrition services, in the case of Chhattisgarh, who is the frontline provider that you feel is the most effective in taking forward the whole story of nutrition? Is it the Anganwadi workers, or do you find this frontline somewhere else?
With respect to nutrition, it is Anganwadi workers who actually take the lead, ably supported by the methanins, because in Chhattisgarh, we have a different concept of methanins than the ASHA. In other parts of the country, we have methanins for almost 50 people to 150 people. So we have lots of methanins. So it's an Anganwadi worker who takes the lead, ably supported by the methanins, and also self-help group members also ably support whenever there is a need for it.
Have you done, or have you had research done on effectiveness of these frontline workers, or what could make them more effective?
Actually, right now, we don't have a proper database, or we have not done any research so far, but we are planning to partner with either UNICEF or other organizations to find out whether our Anganwadi workers can help us actually know about nutrition and what are the foods they serve and how to cook the food also. Because many of the time when we go to the field, they themselves don't know. They just put the quantity as prescribed and just cook it based on the number of children that they turn up. And also the quality of food that they serve, because these programs are running for a lot of time, whereas if you go by the NFHS data and other data, the malnutrition reduction is just 1% per annum, which is too less for the intervention that we are making. So one of the probable reasons could be the quality of food that is being served. Though the quantity of food may be correct, the quality of food, especially from the nutritional aspect, has to be studied. So for that, we are already discussing with UNICEF for this initiative. Maybe this year only, sooner we'll be launching a study to find out.
Anuji, very quickly from your side, for your state, who are the frontline workers that you rely on in terms of the nutrition message to households?
So for us, it's 100% Anganwadi workers. They are doing an outstanding job. Even during COVID, all the hot cooked meal which was earlier given has been given as dry ration. And in our state, they have been so faithful as to actually even apportion the amount of potatoes or whatever they used to put as vegetables. That also they gave whatever was the monthly thing they felt that belonged to that child, that much amount of oil, that much amount of condiment. So 100% it is the Anganwadi worker. But as my colleague said, ably supported by the ASHAs and the ANMs, because they are very useful when it comes to all our village health and nutrition and sanitation days, or the the RBSK program or the immunization program. So in that, there is a lot of partnership at the field level. But nutrition messages, it is Anganwadi worker, both delivery and messages, and taking it to the mothers committees. We have a concept of Janch committees. So all that, she's the one who is coordinating.
Junaid, if you permit me, I just want to add one more point.
Sure.
When I was district collector, we tried a malnutrition project called as Fulwari, where we gave the entire responsibility to the mothers group to run the entire show. So there, the reduction in malnutrition levels was found to be much more faster than the routine Anganwadi setup. So right now, we are also planning to engage the Panchayat Raj institutions, the political representatives, and also the mothers group as much as possible, including in the tribal areas, the Manji Chalkis, so that until the change happens in the minds of these people, only the Anganwadi worker or the ANMs fighting will not give desired results. So this time, with the intervention of the Honorable Chief Minister and our ministers, they were directly trying to connect to the Panchayat Raj members like the Sarpanchas and Panchas, and also we are planning to engage with the tribal community leaders also, so that let the community take the ownership, ably assisted by the Women and Child Welfare Department and the Health Department. And we want the Panchayat Raj institutions to take the lead, supported by the other institutions.
Yeah, in Odisha also, Junaid, the fund which we give to the Anganwadi worker is jointly operated by the ward committee member, and so the ward member is actively involved in the nutrition. So part of the panchayat, and self-help groups are the ones who make the take-home ration. Mother committees are the ones who monitor it. So that way we have a lot of community participation.
So I'll now turn to our other colleagues in the panel, but I think for me, one of the big questions that will emerge in the coming years in India is exactly what both of you have mentioned, is the relationship of the frontline workers with panchayats and districts. That what is this combination that will sustain the frontline workers and give them the right incentives to go forward. Other countries are beginning to look at their frontline workers and are beginning to ask the questions, do they become full public sector workers? And the answer often is, well, that'll kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Others are saying, well, should it be contracted by local governments rather than state governments? And what does it matter if these changes are done? So I think the service delivery side that both of you mentioned, I think is an area that's going to require quite a bit of research. Let me maybe now turn to GS Toteja from the Indian Council of Medical Research. You've heard the conversations from the state, and there are a lot of questions that are being asked in terms of research about real-time delivery, real-time impact. Relative to those kind of questions, what questions would a ICMR ask in the arena of nutrition? What are the questions that really are driving you in this area? You may need to unmute, I think. We can't hear you unless others can hear Mr. Toteja. No. So Toteja,
Yes,
can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Thanks to organizer for giving me this opportunity to share my views. I think first I'll go by 2-3 questions which the organizer asked me to answer. This is related to, you see, how ICMR set its research priority, then how ICMR support implementation research, and how ICMR can improve the capacity building at grassroots level. Then I come to your point, you see. ICMR, and then you see the main research work being carried out by one of the 26 permanent institute of ICMR, that is National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, which was established in 1980. So both are. The mode of research was to carry out the research through the institute network, you see. But in the area of nutrition, we had only one institute then, And slowly, you see, we opened the regional medical research center in different parts of the country. Like we had in Bihar, we had Rajasthan, Port Blair, and Odisha also. So these also started working in the field of the nutrition. Then with the time, you see, we started working, we started supporting also, become the funding agency. So we started extramural research also, where we are supporting the research in terms of ad hoc projects which are submitted by the medical colleges and universities. And also in terms of the research, advanced research centers, where you see they work with this specific theme, And the third is that you see task force mode, where ICMR involved, ICMR versus non-ICMR institutes and organizations with one goal, one common protocol to address nutrition-related issues. So this is the way we started going. So basically, initially, you see, our job was to knowledge generation, and subsequently, slowly, we moved on to the intervention studies, then translation research, and then for last 1 or 2 decades, we are focusing on the implementation research, health system research, etc. Now, our priorities otherwise also go as per the need of the things. As you have been mentioning here, policy making and program managers, if they ask us to work in particular areas, so ICMR is the premier institute of the country in the research, you see. So we address those problems also. So I give you an example of that, recently there was a court case, it went to the Food Authority, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and then they asked ICMR to address that issue about the consumption pattern of high food with high fat, sugar, and salt. You see, we don't have data about that. You see. So that study was launched a couple of years back, and we have completed this study recently. You see, so this is the one the government wanted us to know, so that they can go for appropriate intervention. That the program of vitamin A supplementation is going on since 1971 in our country, and we have made tremendous progress in this area also. We have been talking that our approach should be universal immunization with vitamin A, or it should be target-oriented immunization. So this is another area where we have started study a couple of years back to collect the evidences, whether we do have the same problem of prevalence of beetle spot, which is the clinical sign of vitamin A deficiency, because program started with that. So this is the another study which is going on, and we have huge data with us, and we are analyzing the data. So that will give the answer to the government, whether they should go for universal supplementation of vitamin A, or you should be local, focal, targeted one. Then similarly with also, we have been doing this iodization of salt for last several years, and recently if you see the level of urinary iodine is quite good. So then again, you say this is the area where we should work. And then some public health issues also came in last few years. The questions were raised in the parliament, and ICMR was asked to answer, like the toxicity of local juice. Some people died because of consumption of local juice. So that also has been addressed by us, and it has been published in Indian Council of Medical Research Journal. Similarly, there was a problem of rice in the Punjab, and ICMR got into it and demonstrated that the rice which was cultivated and was lying in the food corporation of India worth 4,000 crore rupees safe for consumption. So the farmers got a lot of relief by that, they got money back. So this is another area. Similarly, on soybean also, there is a lot of discussion on soybean also. How you process it, If you process it properly, it is safe. So that are also issues which we address, with time. Now, then Kesi Dal, then guidelines for probiotics, all this we had done in the last few years only. Now, coming back to the implementation research, if we talk about the implementation research which we are doing, I think I started as a officer of ICMR and somewhere in mid-90s, We started 2-3 projects. One is the district nutrition project, started in 96, and then also one on capacity building of primitive tribe. And that from this project of capacity building of primitive tribe, this ASHA has emerged out. And that is the implementation, as you were asking, that at grassroots level, who is the important person. Anganwadi worker, the best, no doubt about that. But as you asked me, how we need to do some implementation research to see how we can make Anganwadi worker more effective. Then how about the convergence also? Because you have another worker, ASHA, ASHA has been introduced with national 10 years, 15 years ago, ASHA. But there are two different departments, Anganwadi worker is managed by Women and Child Development or Ministry of Social Welfare somewhere. And ASHA is managed by the Health Department. And then so how convergence work there, and if introduction of Sahayika also with ASHA, with Anganwadi worker, how much this has made A&M dysfunctional, A&M is passing the responsibility to ASHA and to Sahayika also. So there also you need to see that how best we can use A&M also, because A&M is for 4-5 villages, cannot reach there, So the coordination between A&M, Anganwadi worker and ASHA is, you need a lot of good implementation research also. Then also in continuation of this, I will mention about that Dr. Purnima Menon mentioned about take-home ration versus cash. Last year we developed a project on this for three states, And then the implementation research comes a big way here, If you are giving cash to the women, Anganwadi worker, whether that cash will be utilized properly, how cash is to be given to the women, if it has to deposit in the bank, then do we have bank in every place, every villages? Or they have to go for a few kilometers, then have to transport and then get little money, which we are proposing for cash against the take-home ration. So that do we have ATMs everywhere? They know how to use ATM. So these are the lot of things, where a lot of implementation research is required, because you have to develop some model, If you say take-home ration, instead of take-home ration, you give the cash to the people, So you have to do some research also, and implementation research play a very important role in this thing. So this is another area which I was talking. Now the third one is that
Can I ask, if I may,
yes,
these questions which are very valid, and I'm going to ask our representative of NITI to come in. I just want to ask very quickly, and then I'd like to move to our other colleagues. These implementation questions that you have so correctly pointed out, does the Indian Council of Medical Research also do these kind of research, or are they more in the more scientific ones that you mentioned earlier?
We are in both, but we have to now give more emphasis to the implementation research. You see, in the national policy on health, you see in 2017, there is a one recommendation that I see that there should be one National Institute on Implementation Research. And I'm happy to inform you that in December 2019, the Honorable Health Minister, you see, has converted our institute, where I am director in ICM Institute in Jodhpur, you see, that become regional institute, the National Implementation Research and non-communicable disease. So similarly, you can go for the nutrition research also. So therefore, ICM now has moved very aggressively in this area. In the last, I will take another minute or two, if you allow
just
me.
last point, because we need to move to the other.
Yeah,
please.
1 or 2 minutes. The one is that you see the model for research, what model? Because, we sitting in a center, you see, I think we should empower the state government, you see. We need to have the state government nutrition policy. We must work through the district level system, you see, I would say. District should be the unit where we should work. So this is my suggestion. And thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Pandav, could you share a little bit where your institution, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, what perspective you take in research around nutrition, and how does that link to this issue of implementation in terms of the work that you are doing? Mr. Pandav, can you hear us? Pandavji? May not be connected.
Let us pray for all those, my fellow colleagues, doctors, nurses, forgiveness. Now, to answer your question, sir, Junaid Bhai Sahab, I've been working in Bangladesh since 1990, for the last 30 years. Namaskar. আপনার সাথে ভার্চুয়াল প্ল্যাটফর্মে দেখা করে আমি সম্মানিত বোধ করছি আজকালকার জীবনে ভার্চুয়ালটা বাস্তব হয়ে উঠেছে
ধন্যবাদ ধন্যবাদ
I was looking in Delhi for the dates of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 at the sky. I could not find any stars in the sky. Purnima has organized such an excellent program, as historically she has done, where all the experts from the star had descended on the Sare Tare Zameen pe utar gaye the. Sare Tare Zameen pe. And in her own usual erudite style, Purnima presented in such an excellent way the summary of the program. She knows too well that people in capital city, especially Delhi, have no time to turn a page. Now, my institution, my alma mater, I have spent 45 years at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. It has brought on epigenetic changes in me. Every cell of my body speaks of DAMS. I come from a culture where if you want to make a point, I tell a story. And this is a famous story of a centipede and a wise owl. A centipede had arthritis and he had it in all his 100 legs. So he went to the wise owl for advice. The owl thought about it for a while and then said, the only remedy for is to turn yourself into a man. With only 2 legs, you shall find that pain is much easier to live with. So the centipede thanked him and went home. The next day he came back to the wise owl. Pardon me, sir. He said, I was so excited about your answer yesterday. I foolishly forgot to ask you how I should become a man. The owl looked at him sternly and said, my dear young fellow, I only make policy decisions. It's up to you to implement them. There are three kinds of people in this world: those who are wise, those who are otherwise, and India with a special category, those who are superwise. I met a wise person, Aryan Devakt, ever since he has come to India. He focuses on C-square IQ: coverage, continuity, intensity, and quality. To quote Aryan Devakt, follow the wise man that I considered him. Last evening, Aryan and I were in a seminar looking at nutrition and immunity, E-Summit 2020. Aryan talked about leadership while participating in this seminar when I was looking for answers to these questions. I thought it's not about leadership. It's about educational leadership. So what I learned from the McMaster University in Canada, which has made my second alma mater, that any question has to be seen in the context of iterative loop, traveling loop. It's research, policy, policy to program, and back to research. So I would like to put all the questions that anybody asks me in this particular context. And the answer I see is, surprisingly, sir, I know that you went to Stanford and also went to Harvard, and Dr. Mishra had gone to Syracuse. Incidentally, Syracuse is a record of people who drink maximum number of coffee. So I went to McMaster, and what I learned about it, the very questions that we're trying to address today is educational leadership. Now, what is educational leadership? Educational leaders who want to accomplish goals that matter, inspire others to join them in working towards these goals and leave a lasting legacy. I've seen Dr. Garg over a period of time, and she's a classical example that I can easily quote with pride, that she wants to accomplish goals that matter, inspire others to join them in working towards these goals and leave a lasting legacy. Now, there is a book by Andrew Hargreaves and it talks about principles: sustainable leadership lasts, sustainable leader spreads. Sustainable leadership is socially just, sustainable leadership is resourceful, sustainable leadership promotes diversity, and sustainable leadership is activist. So if I want to say in one word, in 1 minute, this is what I would say that would comprehensively address all the questions that have been raised during this course of conversation, all the answers that remain unanswered. I come to the main point that it's all about sustainable leadership, sustainable educational leadership, and the 7 principles that we need to follow. Sir, you mentioned that you come from Bangladesh. With due respect to you, sir, the people from Bangladesh begin to walk at the age of 1 and spend half their time doing that. Koto jabe babu mashay, I mean, hard job. They begin to walk at the age of 2 and never seem to stop. With these words, I'll stop here, sir, to answer any more questions. Thank you very much. Khub dhanyawad.
Thank you. I take your point about leadership very strongly. And I must tell you that in every presentation that I'm part of, I try to talk about Bangladesh, but this time you've saved me the space and you talked about Bangladesh. So, dhanyawad.
Sonar Bangla, Babu Mashai, Sonar Bangla.
Sonar Bangla, thank you.
I mean, Bangla,
Dhanyawad, dhanyawad. Let me turn to Neena, Bhatia, Kaul in NITI. So I really have one question for you. And it's one that has come out in many of the conversations. Everyone feels that if you really want to make an impact on nutrition, convergence has to be very big because there are many levers to deal with nutrition. I'm wondering, does NITI do research work that addresses these challenges about convergence? Because convergence is about linking panchayats with line ministries, with districts, with several different types of schemes, all to make an impact at the household level. What kind of work or policy research is NITI doing to actually look at these issues of implementation? Over to you, Neena.
Yeah. Good evening. And first of all, I would like to thank all the organizers, particularly IFPRI, who is our partner also in monitoring POSHAN Abhiyan and various other schemes for giving me this opportunity. I would like to start by saying NITI itself is not doing any research, but NITI is promoting convergence through in various schemes. For example, we are piloting rice fortification with Ministry of Food in 15 districts. You know, we have got the permission, and in 8 districts we have already started iron fortified rice. We are also trying to bring together more than one partner in dietary by inclusion of millets in ICDS and other safety nets in the schemes. We are working through ADP program, which is aspirational district program of NITI Aayog, where we are trying to bring in partners in various departments to address the issues of undernutrition as well as underdevelopment, because these aspirational districts have been identified based on 6 domains where the performance of districts is not very good. At the same time, NITI is also, in the terms of convergence, trying to see how we can integrate data, particularly from with CAS, with HMIS, or in future maybe national digital health mission with with the ICDS data, and how we can use the technology, how we can use the data for strategically for improving the performance of the programs, where we can bring in more than one ministry together for let's say improving the outcomes. So in some of these examples, like I have just listed about rice fortification, about dietary diversification, we are also working with PRIs, and we have done training of frontline workers, and we have been able to strengthen their capacity, and piloting that in 25 aspirational districts of NITI to deliver health and nutrition messages. With SHG groups right now, the training component, like we have the proposal is with the Rural Development Ministry, and we try to also pilot that. So it is by piloting various interventions involving more than one ministry at the ground, we try to see, show that how we can create impact, and based on these pilots, the options can be then scaled up.
Do you link the work that you're doing on centrally sponsored schemes and their effectiveness? Are you doing a look at centrally sponsored schemes and the various ones that affect nutrition, how they can be reformed? Is that also an area that you look at?
We are doing concurrent monitoring of POSHAN Abhiyan as well as PMMVY scheme for the government of India. And for 2 years, we have been working on, more than 2 years now, we have been working on PMMVY concurrent monitoring. And today in the cash transfer session, there was a paper along with the where NITI has also contributed to creating awareness, to improve the coverage of the scheme, and various, barriers that were there in the initial implementation. Of course, there are still more to do in the scheme to improve its coverage as well as effectiveness. But we are, and in POSHAN Abhiyan, we have done 3 monitoring reports already. We have ranked the states based on the readiness, on for implementation challenges, and also we are now trying to collect data we are into the 4th report, where we are trying to collect the data. We are collecting best practices from various states and trying to share it so that we can replicate those efforts in other states, and improve the implementation and give more ideas how certain service delivery can be improved.
Thank you. Before we go to Secretary Mishra, it would be wrong of me if I didn't call one of the most important development partners in the whole area of women, child, and nutrition, our colleague from UNICEF, Aryan. Aryan, could you maybe in a minute share your perspective on where this whole domain of research is going, or you would like to see it go in terms of the discussions around nutrition?
Well, thank you very much. And first, congratulations to the organizers and the whole team. We talk about a huge set of partners. And I don't think that this is something that has been always like that. This large number of partners from governments, institutes, and development partners together to put their weight behind POSHAN Abidjan, because that is where it is about at the end. And congratulations to IFPRI to facilitate that. And I think also a strong message to government at national state level that these research groups, the institutes, the individuals are there to put their weight and to help to make POSHAN Abidjan a success. So I think that's the first point. The other point for me, and I think comes up very much not only in the week, but also in the reflections today, is we know a lot. And the question is, how are we going to apply what we know? And often we want to know more. But I also, if I listened and see what has been discussed this week, I also wonder, are we even using what we know? If I look at some of the presentations of this week, basically it says POSHAN Abidjan is the way to go. POSHAN Abidjan is about strengthening systems, it's about delivering services to everyone who needs it, continuously, high quality. That's what POSHAN Abidjan is. And actually, when I look at the presentations this week, it confirms that POSHAN Abidjan is the right answer to address malnutrition in India. It also showed some of the presentations this week that there's this danger of what I call a COVID-induced nutrition crisis, that many of the gains made in the last years might actually be lost if we are not careful. And I think therefore, for me, the message comes really out of building confidence that POSHAN Abidjan is the right answer. And I would call we need POSHAN Abidjan 1.2. And I think that POSHAN Abidjan 1.2 has started at the beginning of POSHAN Ma. It's amazing again to see the leadership that was down a little bit in the last 6 months, but with the start of POSHAN Ma, the leadership from the highest level all the way up to community level behind POSHAN Abidjan is there again. And for me, POSHAN Abidjan 1.2 is taking into account the new realities of COVID. But when it comes to evidence, first of all, don't look for the Holy Grail. There is no answer that we don't know yet that is going to make the biggest change. It's about doing the tough work, about delivering the high impact interventions to everyone that needs it. And indeed, I think this week, reflecting on this week, a lot of small tweaks and changes can be made. But the big message is continue what you need to do and deliver POSHAN Abidjan with what Dr. Pandav quoted, C²IQ. Coverage, every child, every community, every family. Continuity, we need a continuity back. We lost the continuity in COVID. We need 12 POSHAN Mas per year. We need 52 breastfeeding weeks per year. So we need a continuity. We need intensity, not one message, two messages. We need a lot of radio spots, television, face-to-face counseling on awareness of nutrition. And of course, we need the quality. So I think this week really gives the confidence that POSHAN 1.2, as I call it, the COVID-sensitive POSHAN Abidjan, is the right way to go. Let's have the confidence and let's use the learnings from the evidence to tweak and adjust here and there. Yeah, but let's continue hand in hand to deliver. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you very much. I hear your call for POSHAN 1.2, and I think that's a wonderful segue to request Secretary Mishra to come in and give his perspective as the ministry that leads on POSHAN to maybe reflect a little bit on this incredible 3-day, this is the third India-focused implementation event, linking implementation research into the reality of India and nutrition. Your thoughts, Secretary Mishra, over to you kindly.
Thank you, Junaid. First of all, compliment you and the team for having organized and anchored this very wonderful event. And I compliment Purnima particularly for very comprehensive, very wonderful. My gratitude to all the researchers and the ones who contributed to this 3 days of interaction. and those who remain behind. They did not come to the fore, but they remain behind. This is important because when we talk about research on nutrition, it's a very, very comprehensive, very, very multidimensional, very, very cross-cutting kind of subject. And therefore, research not only in a particular institution, but the multi-dimensional research. Research also is important with research which leads to search for solutions. And this is where what you have done in terms of this linking the research to implementation strategies and action. I think this is a very, very commendable kind of perspective. And this is where lie the clues to so many other actions and then interventions which we can pick up. The point has been made about data, and we all know that it's very, very crucial, very, very critical. Because if the purity, the quality of data is not up to the mark, then the conclusions which we end up drawing on the basis of the data and information, they are many times lead to somewhere else, not to the destination. So therefore, this point actually has been underlined. We all, I think, should take note of this. I have also made note of this. And data coming from, again, various sources, not only from one source. Like say, in our case, example, if we say we are picking up data only from Anganwadi worker, that may not be enough. We need to pick up data from the mother. And we need to, like say, when I joined here, suggested that we need to do the appetite kind of observation and find out how much is the appetite of a child. That is a very scientific process, but having said this, if we can simply ask the mother and get a kind of system of communication where we just ask her a very focused kind of question. Come on, can you tell me as to what is happening to your child? Is the child hungry enough? Are able to eat properly? What is the kind of thing he is yearning for? What is the taste the child has? The child likes milk or curd. What is it? So, if we can move on like this, where there are more people who are very close to the child, and mother is the closest, and then the community, as you mentioned, so Ahmed also mentioned, and so many of you mentioned this point of community. That's very crucial because there is a child, there is a pregnant woman, there is a lactating mother, and then there is a household, there is a family around that mother and child combined. Then there is a neighborhood. Then there is a community in the village. There are panchayat actually, mentioned as well. So all this is interlinked because these are the rings within the rings. And then overall say panchayati raj institution or a community in the village is the kind of ecosystem provider for both mother and child. So therefore, this data coming in from various sources which are going to impact this multi-dimensional interface and then multi-dimensional research as well as search for the solutions. And the solutions here are dynamic actually. The solutions are continuous. Because once we do a baseline of a child, then it doesn't end there till the problem of undernutrition or malnutrition is solved. The journey has to be tracked. And then on that journey, so we are building up a system. We already had one system, my system, we already have it. But we are trying to bring in more elements into it so that the picture which we are getting, the evolving picture of each child we are getting should be truthful, rooted in the ground, and also we should be able to weave it with the solutions as they are there actually, from the science and from the technology. And this is why we are now building up very, very cohesive kind of teams, convergence in the several ministries. We already have signed the agreements and MOUs in the last 1 month. And agriculture, rural development, panchayati raj, forest, health, name the few. So these are the teams which have to contribute and partner. And in this, all of you who are participating in this program, all of you, because Honorable Prime Minister of India said that we need Poshan Mukt Bharat. Poshan Mukt Bharat has to be a partnership-based, contributory kind of process. It cannot be done by one particular agency. And therefore, this interaction, which we have anchored and organized, I think is very, very important. What I'll also recommend and also look forward is this should not be just event-based, that just because there's Poshan Ma, therefore some of us are getting together and talking about it and making some recommendations and conclusions. This journey has to be completely ongoing. It has to be till Bharat is Poshan. And therefore, the point also is important that we need to build up those perspectives for long-term kind of scenario. Like say, immediate one could be 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Then we can have some midterm kind of target and milestone. Then we can have some short-term things, say next 2 years or something. And in this again, there'll be scenarios. If this is the kind of resource mobilization, these are the kind of likely outcomes. This is the resource mobilization, the likely outcome. So that being so, I think coming days, there'll be a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate, contribute together. And along with data, I would also like to flag the issue of standards. Many times when say we have talked about stunting, so in different geographical regions of India, there are people of different heights. Dr. Pandav will bail me out because he comes from that background. Different communities have different kind of height standards. And if for India, if you average out at one particular height level and then you start comparing everybody around that, then the picture may be a little different than what it ought to be. So therefore, within the country, there are those geographical connotations, those localized contexts in which we need to talk about the targets, talk about standards, and we talk about the contribution to be made by different people. And this is where the point of convergence, as I mentioned, is very important. One thing we are stepping up it is the convergence with the community medicine and then our own traditional practices, like say Ayush systems. So we had the other day detailed discussion with Ayush, and there's so many practices there which are prevalent as per that particular science of healing, which are very close to food. Actually, a lot of herbs are there, a lot of food items are there, which taken in a particular way can take care of certain areas of undernutrition and malnutrition, especially when it comes to enhancing the appetite, for example, or taking care of the problems in the digestive system. The issue is if the digestive system of the child and mother, and if the appetite which is linked to that is not in proper shape, if you overfeed also, it has other problems. Then, as I understand, it becomes very toxic actually. Overfeeding a person also has its own problems. So that has to be, I think, factored in. And this is where Mr. Ahmed, as always, he chips in. The role of global best practices, not only global best practices. Just now we heard a couple of continuously and communities to learn from them and upscale them in their own context. The mention has been made about human capital. I think that is the crux of the matter here, because when we're talking about dealing with such large number of people who need not only food packets but more than that, empathy, it's very, very important that we are able to create that emotional context for handling that stuff, to be able to bring in that level of empathy in the kind of services they're dealing. So we are now working on certain modules and programs for that purpose, and we'll draw help from ongoing our World Bank project, which is already there with us. And together all this is a very, very vast subject. And then what I'll urge upon also is these 3 days of learning. Though I benefited from a very wholesome presentation made by Purnima, I'll request Mr. Ahmed, I would like to benefit from the content of what you have transpired in those 3 days, and would like to get kind of distilled sense of what your those recommendations and suggestions have been made by various experts, various participants in this entire process. And as I said, this is a journey to solving these problems which are associated with malnutrition, and linking it to the dream of our Honorable Prime Minister. We need to continuously move on. I'd like to share with you, she has shared with me so many initiatives she has in mind. Goals, I think, Mr. Ahmed and all of you, slowly we will get the chance to discuss more about them. And everybody, I would say everybody who is involved with the food and nutrition, I think we should create a platform where everybody is continuously contributing. And this is where the last thing I would like to highlight is that when we talk about convergence, it should not remain a general kind of expression. We need to have very, very focused KPIs when we talk about convergence. Converge for what? So first of all, what is the milestone actually? Overall aggregate micro level milestone. In that overall aggregate milestone, what are those subsets of those contributions to be made by whom? And to what extent, what quality? And then those KPIs have to be discussed, negotiated, and agreed. And there has to be a very robust system of monitoring ourselves, not as a kind of watch or any kind of surveillance or something. But as I said, we give to ourselves these targets with empathy and concern. I'm sure we don't need anybody's help to get control to achieve those milestones. And therefore, as we have the tradition in our country, one was that of Sana Bhavatu, Sano Bhanatu, and the second one of Sangachatum Sambhadatu, doing everything together. And nutrition is something where everybody is welcome, because everybody contributes, right? From farmers to the processing, teaching, to the IT people who are protecting digital infrastructure, particularly doctors. And this is where very last thing I want to share with you. Those who are already SAM, those are, of course, they need very urgent help. But those who are somewhere there when they could join SAM if they're not attended, those are also very important. And this is where I think each child, each pregnant mother, each lactating mother, I think we need to have them on the radar. And look forward to help and contribution from all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful to Mr. Ahmed have given me this opportunity to be here with all of you. Look forward to the similar kind of engagement in the days to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Mishra, for your reflections. A lot of good thoughts, and I think a lot of leadership is expected from Women and Child, the Minister and yourself, to taking forward this whole agenda of POSHAN. And please count on the development partners, UNICEF and ourselves at the World Bank to support you and the states, because ultimately the implementation will be at the state level, and supporting the state capability in this area is going to be extremely important, and convergence can only happen at the state level. So thank you very much. And if I may now...
Mr. Chairperson, sir, can I take 15 seconds?
You may. I'm going to hand it over to Purnima, and so please go ahead, and then Purnima will come in.
Well, during this National POSHAN Maha, yesterday was a very historic day. Our Honorable Prime Minister celebrated his 70th birthday. We wish him a very happy, healthy, and high quality life. I consider our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a public health practitioner, not of the century, but of the millennium. And I'll give an evidence for that. National Health Mission, National Nutrition Mission, Swachh Bharat, Ayushman Bhava, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. I have not seen a world leader who has in a short period of time brought such important schemes and introduced him. So I consider him as a public health practitioner, not of the century, but of the millennium. Finally, my famous quote, I always put it, in the field of nutrition, the task is to do what is possible without forgetting to do what is necessary. My 5 seconds are over. Thank you, Purnima.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Junaid, and thank you so much, Secretary Sir, Prasanna ji, Anu ji, Dr. Toteja, Dr. Pandav, Aryan. This was an incredible closing. It makes me so happy to see the community that we've brought together. So I just want to say deep thanks to each of you for the commitment that you have shown, also by staying as late as you did. Clearly a topic that interests and engages our own commitment. I would like to just close with a few thank yous, because an event as big as this does not come together without people behind it. So I want to say thank you to our to our co-hosts and the conference secretariat primarily. We have really wonderful partners in NITI Aayog. Everyone I have met there has been really up on the evidence agenda, and that enables and encourages those of us who are in that world. I'm not going to take the names of the 20 co-hosts, but it has been an incredible journey. We have all been working together for, I want to say, a few months on this endeavor to bring things together. And also to the researchers and the implementers. We solicited abstracts both on research and on implementation evidence, because we believe that both forms of knowledge are to be valued and consolidated, and people really worked hard to put their work on paper to submit things in. So thank you very much for that. We had a core team at IFPRI that deserves tremendous recognition, who have helped hold this whole conference together. I'm often just a very public face sometimes, but the amount of hard work that happens behind the scenes is astounding. So I'd especially like to thank the core team, especially my colleagues Isha Saraswat, Pratima Matthews, Rasmi Abula, who held the technical and sort of people outreach aspects of this conference together, and our technical and administrative team. We also had an amazing support team that cuts across the nutrition team at IFPRI here, our communications team at IFPRI headquarters, and the South Asia region communications team. But really, this is an effort of partnership. This is our own sort of coming together, and I guess, Aryan, you're right, we have not seen this kind of coming together in a long time. So I really look forward to continuing the journey. Take very seriously, Secretary Sir, your words that it's not an event, it's the beginning and a continuation of a journey of us helping to bring evidence and experiential knowledge to those who would so clearly like to take it to make their programs better and reach every woman and every child in the first 1,000 days across India to solve the malnutrition challenge here. So thank you all again so much for the great participation, and have a wonderful weekend. I think we are officially closed. Thank you.